let's wait for another 30 seconds. We have another 3 people try to get in. Yeah.
Look at all these friendly faces. Hello, everyone. Hi, Julia. Hi, Amy. I'm just calling out random names from the people that I see. Hi, Katie, Jesse Wang, Jason Peng. It looks like we have a couple different generations represented. We've got some young people and then some people that are more my age.
Yeah, because we have a community more than almost close to 8,000 people in Great New York and area. So everybody's want to come to join.
Well, it's great to see everyone. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Let's quick start the program, and I think it's we don't have much time, but just the introduction. My name is Dang Sang. I work for Angelene since 2018, and in charge of fundraising, and that's the purpose for today's meeting. And make sure after today's meeting, everyone go outreach to your friends, ask for $10, $25 to support Andrew to run the New York mayor. 400 years, the first Asian, first Chinese to run the New York City, the biggest city in the world. So make sure it's your today's event successful. We have like 172 people signed up already. So make sure it's everyone can feel we are together to make a history. And I do appreciate Angelene Huang to put all people here together. Thank you very, very much, Angelene. I appreciate it. While I stay in New York, you treat me well, buy the dinner for me, and I appreciate it. Thank you. It's your turn, and your education institute is inspire a lot of youth. Thank you.
Yeah, by the way, thank you, Don. It's so nice to meet you. And also, of course, it's my honor to be part of the Angels campaign. So also thanks everyone for almost close to 200 people here, and parents and youth. Thanks everyone. Thank you for joining this exciting event. And I especially want to give this opportunity to thank a few of the leaders actually helped me too. First of all, Harrison Ding, founder and a CEO of High Elite Education from Indiana. And also Michelle Zhang, founder of the Society of the Heart Delight from San Jose, California. Cassie Peng, founder of Silicon Valley Forum 500 from California. She's right under the Andrew. And also Yan Fang Su, founder of the Mandarin Playground from Seattle. And Qing Song, founder of the Spider Smart Williamton from Delaware. And Alison Zhao, Yiyun Liu, Rachel Yang, VisWise Academy team, and from all the New York areas. And thanks to many people behind this event and have given great support. And I also want to thank 6 young leaders and the parents' support to organize and prepare for this event. Now I will let Harry C., a sophomore student from Columbia University, to kick off this afternoon's event.
Thank you, Ms. Huang, for the lovely introduction. Before I begin, I also want to just thank you from the bottom of my heart. Without your dedication and support, tonight would not be possible. So thank you. My name is Harry, and I'm a college student in New York City. During this pandemic, every time before I go outside, there's always this inner voice telling myself, you're Chinese, not American. People might beat you up. When I first came to the city 2 years ago, I never anticipated facing this kind of existential threat. Back then, seeing the first Asian American man running for president was like a real-life version of the American dream coming true. But after the pandemic struck, like many of my peers, I've lived in constant fear of being yelled at, coughed at, spat on, or even attacked in the public. I feel powerless. Seeing our community charred and shattered like this feels like a knife in my heart. Over the past few months, I volunteered at a food pantry near Chinatown with Ms. Huang and other dedicated students. We gave basic necessities to thousands of elderly people, especially those who are disproportionately affected by the pandemic. While it is so easy to surrender ourselves to anger, frustration, and despair in this uncertain time, through helping others, I began to realize the civic responsibility rested on our shoulders. So in this fateful moment, we need to choose between hope and surrender. And I choose to support Mr. Yang's vision as he fought tirelessly for the things that you and I deeply care about, such as universal income, accessible healthcare, and affordable housing. His run for New York City mayor is the odyssey for millions to reclaim their American dreams. As a historically marginalized and silenced community, we must stand together in a time of crisis. And with that, I'll give the floor to Alex Ye.
Thank you, Harry. That was incredible.
Thanks.
I'd like to thank everyone for being here again. Starting off, let's thank Angelene Huang for amazing effort, Andrew Yang's astounding team, and of course, Andrew Yang himself. Many of us Asian Americans reflect our identities, demonstrating the significance of racial identifications towards politics and acknowledging the discriminatory barrier towards this political engagement. As the United States' fastest expanding minority, our political influence has barely scratched the surface of our potential. To provide for our future, let's look at the present, what will become the future. This results in looking at Asian American students, the future of our community. Us students must be informed about politics, and most importantly, should recognize this discriminatory barrier towards their engagement. Yet so many are uninformed. Unbeknownst to them, there's a whole world of politics that they could be a part of, yet they aren't. We have to ask why Asian American communities are less involved in politics than other communities. And the answer to this is political education, or rather the lack thereof. A likely cause for disinterest in politics is because us Asians are a minority in America. As a result, Asian Americans convince themselves that their influence and effect is negligible. Therefore, they are insignificant in the world of politics. This is simply not the case. Our core message is to demonstrate our capabilities by showing that we can be leaders too. The stunning example being Andrew Yang. Tonight, we honor Andrew Yang running as a Democratic candidate for New York City mayor, listening to his inspirational speech, and perhaps reflecting on our own lives with a new lens that we've uncovered this afternoon. This meeting will hold a series of speeches, followed by a dialogue between Generation Z and Andrew Yang. Lastly, a closing speech. Next up, Emily Gu.
Hi everyone, my name is Emily Gu and I am a junior in high school. I founded an international social justice organization called Students for BIPOC. I've been a supporter of Mr. Yang since the Democratic primaries in 2019, and he's actually the main reason why I became interested in politics. I was just scrolling through Instagram one day when I saw that an Asian American was running for president. Asian Americans are definitely underrepresented in politics, and I was really excited to see that a fellow Asian was going against the status quo. And as I did more research, I found that I supported many of Mr. Yang's policies, especially the freedom dividend, and I also really admired his willingness to speak for minorities. I'm thrilled to be here with you all tonight to support Mr. Yang on his path to become the next mayor of New York City and also the first Asian American mayor of New York City. Now, I would like to welcome Mr. Yang to share his perspective on how his Asian American identity has impacted his career and also advice he has for the next generation. Mr. Yang, you have the floor.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Harry. What an incredible group of young people. You're so mature and sophisticated and purpose-driven. I was not as advanced at your age. I was trying to reflect on where I was when I was a teenager. And like so many of you, well, actually, I'll just tell you about how I grew up. So I grew up the children of immigrants, which I think resembles many of the people on this call. And my family did not discuss politics, to my recollection, when I was growing up alongside my brother. The message that we got was that we should do well in school and try to get into good colleges and then good, in our case, graduate school, and get a good job. And politics did not seem like a natural destination, particularly, I'm describing like the 1980s. When Asian Americans were even more invisible in terms of popular culture. And so certainly no one in my household was saying, you're going to run for office someday, or you're going to run for president someday. I ended up running for president because I saw that there were massive problems coming for America and that existing politicians were not going to do anything about it. And so I decided to run because I thought I could contribute. I was incredibly proud to be the first Asian American man to run for president as a Democrat. And I remember when it really hit me, it might have been the same time you all noticed me, which was the first presidential debate in summer of 2019. It was in Miami, Florida. And I saw a picture of myself on that debate stage. you know, and even I did a double take where I said like, wow, like just the image of an Asian American man on that stage alongside these name brand American political figures blew my mind. And I thought to myself, like, wow, if that weren't me, I feel like it would have the same impact in the sense that, like, if I were a young Asian American growing up in this country, seeing me on that stage would actually be something completely different and something that would elevate your sense of what was possible. And I will say that that was one of my goals when I decided to run for president in the first place. I thought that I could make the presidential debate stage, and I thought that I could help inspire the next generation of young person. And I'm so grateful, Emily, that that happened in your case. I mean, you've already taken action in a way that I think is going to be extraordinarily positive. So I'm so pleased and proud that my dream came true on that level. I will say that after that first debate, I was immediately just preparing for the second debate and trying to make the third debate and the fourth debate. Like I was in like this constant struggle. There were so many people in my community, in our community, that embraced me and decided to support my presidential campaign, which meant so much to me. Everywhere I went around the country, there would be Asian Americans who would come out. They would have campaign signs. They would bring their kids. We'd get pictures together. It was the most uplifting thing I'd ever done up to that point. And my identity became like a significant part of my presidential campaign. But I dare say it may even be more significant in this mayoral campaign, in part because instead of being the scrappy upstart that people liked, now I'm the front runner that people who've made their career in New York politics are now trying to drag down. So it's a very different feeling, but it's also a different environment because New York City is 14% Asian American, and we have the chance to make political history, to have the first Asian American mayor of the biggest city in the country, one of the most important cities in the world, if not the most important city. I think that I'm going to win this race, by the way. I believe I'm going to win this race. But I'm going to win this race in large part because of you all, of the Asian American community. And I hope that this campaign ends up affirming the sense that people have that all things are possible for us, that we don't have to accept limitations. In some cases, limitations that we didn't even know we were accepting. You know, like you're just, especially if you're young, you're just, you know, trying to do well in school and make friends and plot your course for the future. I'm not sure if when I was growing up, I realized that there were limits on what Asian Americans could do in this country potentially. But I am so honored and proud that to the extent that people think that we have limits, that we're changing it right now in real time. Having an Asian American mayor of New York City, I believe, will break new ground. And I don't think that that is going to be the last step. It's just going to be like the next step. There are going to be people here on this call that end up doing incredible things and surpass anything I've done, you know, in the next number of years. And that too will make me proud if I played even a small part in that. Right before I got on this call with you all, I got a call from a gentleman named Gary Locke. Do you all know who Gary Locke is?
Yeah.
So Gary Locke was the first Chinese American governor of Washington State. He was then appointed Secretary of Commerce by Barack Obama. He, you know, he and I are friends, but he was the original. When I was maybe a bit younger, I was your age, where I saw, wow, like a Chinese American governor of like a major state like Washington, like a cabinet secretary. And then now Gary very happily is saying to me, it's like, hey, like you're going to surpass me, like, you know, you're the next generation. I'm going to be saying that to one of you, I'm sure, you know, like in the next number of years. So I see my place as helping our community realize our potential. And we have a lot of unrealized potential politically. Let's change that. Let's actually fulfill the promise of this country for ourselves, for our families, for our community, and for the country itself, because we have a lot to contribute. This country actually needs us to lead, to serve, and to solve problems in a way that it has never in my lifetime. So thank you all so much for this. I'm so thrilled to be here. And thank you, Angelene, for your incredible work. Look at all the lives you've touched. It's outstanding.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just want to add one. It's so inspiring. And then Andrew, I'm really admire your courage, and I truly. That's why our whole team to dedicate to organize this event. Anyway, next one, Harry.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Yan, for this inspiring speech. I think one thing that really resonated with me and with all of us is that we should never underestimate our power or be intimidated by kind of the societal constraints. And I think a lot of young people are doing their best to follow your footsteps. I'm also so glad that you've reserved some time for us to chat with you tonight. And next up, we have two very passionate high schoolers who are ready to implement some of your suggestions to their personal student advocacy. So Serena and Ian, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you so much, Harry. And Andrew, thank you so much for that energetic and very inspiring speech. So many of us, including myself, can really relate to. And well, as you guys know, my name is Serena, and I am a high school senior, a passionate social entrepreneur, musician, and STEM and business enthusiast from New York City. And most notably, I am the founder of an international 501c3 nonprofit called United Under Arts, and also the co-founder of StudentPort, a global community of over 1,600 student leaders representing over 200 organizations and initiatives. And it is a great honor to be here with you all today.
Thanks, Serena. Hi, I'm Ian, and I'm a freshman in high school from Westchester County, New York. In 2019 and 2020, I came to be a big supporter of Andrew's. It was actually one of my friends who introduced me to his campaign in the spring of 2019, before Andrew really got big, and he sent me one of his interviews on YouTube. And I was listening to him, and I thought, he really knows what he's talking about, and I really believe in him. And so I really believed in your message of humanity first, and universal basic income, democracy reforms, and human-centered capitalism, where we focus on everybody as individual human beings. And it was really inspiring to see someone who looked like me on the campaign trail and the debate stage. And I think that a lot of other Asian Americans shared that experience as well. And this summer, I helped volunteer at local food banks in New York City and the other organizations where I saw the amount of damage that COVID-19 has brought to not just the Asian American communities, but the New York City community as a whole. And when I heard that Andrew was running, I was really inspired, and I was really hopeful because I think that Andrew can do a lot of great things. And so I'm really interested in hearing your thoughts on a lot of things. So thank you.
Thank you, Ian, for the support. That's tremendous. Thank your friend for me too. I'm glad he turned you on to me.
So Andrew, I know that right now, Asian Americans are the fastest growing minority in the United States, and our younger generation has become increasingly more involved and active in leadership and public service. And for example, out of the 1,600 student leaders on StudentPort, many of them are really inspired by your actions and are your supporters. So I was wondering, do you have any suggestions on how younger students can get involved in political activism and lobbying?
Well, Serena, I think I heard someone sing your praises like at an event yesterday, which is really noteworthy given that, you were still so young. To have a senior in high school be, someone that people talk about the way they talk about you is really impressive. I'm so thrilled that some of the activists that you're helping to organize are supporters of mine. I think that what they're doing right now is the best type of training because they both get a sense as to how much they can do, but also how difficult it is, like what the limitations are. And for folks who want to get involved with activism, I would highly recommend getting involved with a political campaign because political campaigns run on passion and humanity and energy more than anything else. They also run on money, I'll be blunt. They run on money and then they run on passion. So if you're a young person, you may have passion in abundance, and as a result, you can do as much or more than anyone else on that campaign. And then if the campaign has any sense at all, they end up giving you outsized responsibility pretty quickly. Because the fact is, no one can tell how old you are on the phone for the most part. No one can tell how old you are when you text them. You know, like if you're doing work, like you could get a lot of stuff done very quickly. And on my presidential campaign, there were some very young people that had real leadership positions and roles of responsibility. So that's one thing I would encourage, Serena, is that for your peers, just take a candidate under your wing, and it doesn't need to be like a major candidate. If they get in touch with their local city council person candidate, then they can become a star in that campaign very quickly. I'm just going to randomly call out someone, Gigi Lee, who's running for city council in District 1 in New York City. She's running in Chinatown. Gigi Lee's great, and if someone in your organization were to volunteer for her, Gigi would know it and appreciate them, and they'd get a lot of experience.
You know, Andrew, I just want to that after Gigi is my friend, so we actually, the food pantry is this community is working with Gigi. So
oh, look,
yeah,
I didn't even know that. But look at that. Like you know, see how we're all on the same wavelength.
Exactly. And by the way, I want to insert one thing. A lot of people here, when I run this campaign for you, the parents come to me that some of young high school students actually, when your presidential campaign, they knock the door, walk 5 hours just working for you. So I think some of them probably is the audience here. So I just wanted to, applaud everyone and you inspire them.
Well, thank you so much, everyone who worked on my behalf. I hope you enjoyed yourself and you learned something and you felt proud of our impact. Because I dare say my presidential campaign ended up elevating ideas that now are helping keep this country together. Universal basic income is now supported by 55% of Americans. Cash relief during the pandemic is supported by 85% of Americans. We've already sent, 2 or 3 sets of cash payments out to people, and there are more coming. And we helped make that happen. We advanced solutions that the country needed very, very quickly. And I'm so proud of that accomplishment.
So
Ian, can someone unmute the Ian?
Yeah. Oh yeah, sorry, I've just been having some technical issues. But on the topic of Asian discrimination, as I think a lot of us know, Asian Americans are hurt by the model minority stereotype that we work hard, that we're well educated, that we're economically well off, and that we keep to ourselves. Once you also had a chance to live a comfortable and life as a corporate attorney in the style of the model minority, where you're quiet, you don't really speak up and make waves. But you quickly quit that. You called it the worst 5 months of your life. So what made you choose to devote yourself to nonprofit programs like Venture for America and later run for public office? And how have you overcome the model minority myth?
Thank you, Ian. One of the things I'm saying on the trail now as I'm running for mayor is that the Asian American community in New York City has the highest level of poverty of any community. It's over 24%, and most people do not realize that. There's a lot of struggle, a lot of diversity in our community. And I'm going to say something I don't think I've ever said publicly before, which is that when you talk about kind of stepping away from like a comfortable lifestyle and doing something difficult, I think that that the last number of weeks and months are actually probably the biggest example of that in my life, because I had a job at CNN, I had like a very cushy life before I decided to run for mayor. I'm thrilled to be running for mayor, and it's great. And I think we have a great chance of winning. But I think that was possibly a bigger sacrifice than when I stepped away from the law firm to try and start a business, because I as you said, I wasn't enjoying myself in that role, and so stepping away from that job didn't feel like a sacrifice. It felt like the next step, because I just felt like I could accomplish something. The biggest left turn I took in my career, and I'm grateful to my wife all the time for this. We joke all the time that there was a bait and switch, because when she and I met and started dating, hey Harry, we met at Columbia too, so that could happen to you. But we.
I look forward to that.
Yeah. That when we started dating, I was working at an education company in New York City. I was, like a fairly normal entrepreneurial executive. And it was really in 2011 when I decided to start Venture for America that my life changed, trying to start a new nonprofit full time. I financed it myself initially and went without salary for a while until I could get it off the ground. That was a very difficult process. I'm very, very proud of Venture for America, but I think that was what set me down this path. Because if you run a nonprofit and you see that the problems are bigger and more serious than even you'd imagined, and in my case, I met the other people who were doing great work. And as great as a lot of their work was, like, you sense that the problems were an order of magnitude bigger than the organizations that were trying to solve it. So starting that nonprofit is the step that led me to end up running for president, and now is leading me to run for mayor. So that happened when I was 36 years old. So it just goes to show that, we all have our own process, our own timeline. That for me, starting that nonprofit was probably the biggest career decision I made that changed my path.
Wow, that's really inspirational, and a good thing to think about as we ourselves start to think about what we're going to do in our lives.
Yeah, and one thing I do want to say to you all as well on that front is that I remember being young like you, and just feeling like I need to make progress all the time. And if you're someone like Serena or many of you, it sounds like, who have like this social impact measurement, then you're going to try and say like, hey, I have to make progress on this organization or my impact on the world all the time. Which unfortunately right now in this era is going to be like, I need to be growing my social media following. I hate to say it, like that's the way it ends up translating. So you should know that progress does not happen like that, that you can spend several years in graduate school or in a company developing skills and learning, and then emerge and then do something with new strengths a little bit later on. Like, you do not need to be fighting it out there in the world all of the time in the same way. Like, as long as you're pushing yourself to develop and you're doing work you're proud of, it can look very different at different times.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. And one more question. Have you ever faced any discrimination as an Asian American in politics? And if you have, how do you deal with it?
Of course I have. Like how could you not? And I will say on the presidential trail, I tried to never make a big deal out of it. I tried to always have like a good attitude, because I felt like if I were to come out and say, hey, like I think that's unfair, and oh, by the way, I think it might have something to do with my being Asian American, I did not think it would help my campaign. And I was very, very goal oriented. I said, look, I just need to make this campaign work. So whatever I have to take. I will tell you all something that, again, I don't think I talk about that much. When I first declared my candidacy in 2018, some of the first journalists that covered me at all were Asian American. There was a pattern where if I were asked to do like Yahoo or Bloomberg or like Boston's NBC affiliate, they were all Asian American journalists who decided to interview me or have me on. And I noticed that it was like the only journalists that wanted to give the upstart Asian American candidate the time of day were people from our community. So you can take from that a little bit of what some of the experiences were like on the trail. I had to fight through a lot. And I'm happy to say that over time, people started listening to me and chewing into my ideas, engaging with the campaign. But there was a lot to overcome. And I think my identity was part of that.
All right, thank you so much. I think that Serena has a few other questions.
All right, well, thank you so much for sharing your own personal stories. I think it was very inspiring for me and many other people on this call today. So I have a few questions from the chat that I would like to read out to you from our audience today. And one of them is, she asks, Hi, Andrew. There are over 30 people running for New York City mayor right now. And she says that all of her friends and she herself all support you. And she asks that what can they do that you think would be helpful to support your campaign? Because they're currently in California, but they'd like to do anything that they can to support you.
Well, thank you so much for the question. There are a lot of ways that you can help from anywhere, particularly because a lot of the campaign is being run online. So if you want to help, you can go to yangforny.com and then volunteer. And then you can do something as basic as text or phone from wherever you are. Right now, volunteers are calling New Yorkers and giving them vaccination information. Because if you're in New York City, as Serena is, well, Serena, you're too young, so it's like not like you're lining up for a vaccine right now. But the vaccination information is very confusing, and so volunteers can literally help people get vaccinated. And I dare say, like, you're going to feel great about that on a human level because you're probably going to be calling an elderly New Yorker, maybe someone from the Asian American community. I was actually just talking to someone today. And it turns out that there's a lot of misinformation in the Asian American community that's keeping people from getting vaccinated. Like there are things out there saying that if you have diabetes or high blood pressure or some other health condition, you should not get the vaccine. That is not medically correct. But that information has been going up on WeChat and other places. And so Asian Americans are not pursuing the vaccine at the same level. So if your friend wants to help, please do volunteer for the campaign. And then you can help people get vaccinated. You can phone and text, but you can do it from anywhere. And then you can really feel great when we win, because you'll know that you helped make it happen.
Well, I hope that answered your question. I think that was Estelle who asked that. And
thank you, Estelle.
Mm-hmm. And for the last question that I'm going to ask today, I know that you and your team seem to be running nonstop, like 24/7, right? But how do you rewind yourself? Do you enjoy reading books, watching movies?
Wow, Serena, I have to say, campaign life is pretty intense. and this race is a sprint. The primary is on June 22nd, which is almost exactly 4 months from now. So imagine if you were me and you knew that you had the chance to be the leader of the greatest city in the world, and it's all up to what you do in the next 4 months and 2 days. Like that's with you all the time. So I will say that this run is in many ways easier than my presidential run because I see my family every day. Whereas in the presidential run, I would not see my family for days, even weeks at a time. So that was very, very difficult. I am very committed to doing everything I can to help New York City get back on its feet, help millions of people, potentially like have an impact, outside of New York City too. Self-care, frankly, is like right now relatively low on my list. I think we may be in position to celebrate on June 23rd. And then at that point, I will be very, very happy to get some rest. But between now and then, though, like events like this sustain me. I don't know if you can tell, like I'm loving speaking to you all. Like there's like a source of energy that you get from campaigning. Campaigning is in some ways much more real than anything else you do, because you're trying to put your own values out into the world. You're trying to say, look, like I believe I can help. Please support me. There's something very, very personal about it, almost spiritual. So I feel more energized when I'm campaigning than when I'm doing just about anything else.
Well, that's really great to hear. And I'm sure you have really made an impact beyond New York City as well, especially as we can see so many people today are from places outside New York City, but are still supporting you and are still very interested in hearing about your policies. So, and now I think Ian has maybe one last question before we have to end today.
Can I jump in to have one more question to my boss, Andrew?
Sure, Don. You got me.
Yeah, I just want you give us a little bit of number of the campaign in terms of money, volunteer, and where we stay, and the deadline, some timelines, the calendar stuff. Just give people some numbers, and then so we know where we are and how we can support you.
Oh, sure thing, Don. I'm happy to. So this is actually, in many ways, the way I see the world. It's funny because, you know, we have goals to accomplish. We have a campaign to win. So right now we are in great shape. The last poll that was run had me as the front runner by, I believe, 13 points. I was in first place at 30%. The second place person was at 17%. The third place person was in 12%. So why am I the front runner? I'm the front runner because 88% of New Yorkers have heard of me, and 65% of them have a favorable opinion of me. Those numbers are both much, much higher than any of the other people in the field. The other people, a lot of people haven't heard of, and if they have heard of them, they don't really think anything. In my case, they've probably seen me on a debate stage, seen me on CNN, seen me on the Colbert Show. Like they've seen me and they have a sense of who I am as a person. So that is the most important set of numbers. But then there are two other numbers that we have to drive up. The first of them is fundraising. So it's one reason I'm so grateful to the people who are supporting my campaign. And if you are in New York City, I'm going to call you out, Serena. Why not? Because I think you're you may be the perfect person for this. If you're in New York City, your donations get matched 8-to-1 by the city of New York for anything you donate between $10 and $250. So if you are 18 years old and you donate $20 to my campaign and you live in New York City, the city will give me an additional $160. Your $20 is like $180. So if we raise the money that we think we need to raise and can raise, I believe I will maintain my front runner status with the press, with everyone else. And it will make it much, much easier for folks to endorse me and get behind me because they will say, okay, his polling is high, but can he raise the money? And so if I raise the money, then everyone will be like, wow, this guy has the organizational strength and the real support. He may win and maybe we should get behind him. And then the other number that we need to get is the votes. So on June 22nd, approximately 700,000 New Yorkers will vote for mayor. But what if that number was 800,000? Maybe even 900,000? Maybe because Asian Americans come out in record numbers. Maybe because some of the 3.2 million registered Democrats in New York City actually come out and vote because only 23% of them ordinarily vote in a mayoral election. If that 23% goes to 30%, I think that I get a lot of those voters, and I think my chances of winning shoot up. So if you'd like to help me win, please do get any of your friends in New York City in particular to donate even $10. It's extraordinarily helpful. And then let's get everyone out to vote on June 22nd because this is a golden opportunity. And there aren't even that many votes that can make the difference because you're looking at, if you have 800,000 votes cast, there are going to be, let's call it 5 or 6 major candidates. Like, we don't need that many people to win. So if you're calling people or texting people and you get them to vote on June 22nd, that could be the difference. So those are the things that I'm paying attention to as the candidate. I'm very goal oriented, as you can tell. Like I have every intention of winning this race, doing what is, in my opinion, one of the hardest jobs in the country right now to the best of my ability, and doing it on a level that makes you all proud.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we have time for maybe one more, right? Yeah. Okay, sorry. You describe yourself as someone who's outside of the status quo. You're more of an outsider, and a lot of other mayoral candidates have claimed to have deeper ties to the city as sort of a way to position themselves over you. And what would you say to them if you got the chance to?
You know, Ian, I will say I think that my race is playing into this a little bit. Like, I don't know if anyone else senses that. There's a little bit of like he's not like a real New Yorker. And then you're like, well, I've lived here for 25 years. My kid's in public school here. You know, like my wife grew up in Queens. Like I've been here the whole time. And so there are a couple of ways to interpret this. The main way that I think is correct is that some of the folks in New York City politics who've been running for mayor, frankly, for years in some cases, have been currying favor with various institutions and individuals and organizations. And I have not been currying favor in the same way. You know, like I've been an entrepreneur, like a nonprofit head, like eventually a presidential candidate, but I have not been planning for this run for months or years. So really that's what they're talking about when they say like, oh, like I've got quote unquote deeper ties. In that, I'll give you an example that's very real. Like there was a union that was looking at endorsing candidates and they really, really liked me. But then like they had enough people who'd actually like made promises to like another candidate like months ago, where like they were like, look, as much as we'd love to support you, like, you know, like we have commitments. So that is what we're up against. But I'm very, very confident that we're going to win because the average New Yorker doesn't care about those conversations or commitments. like the average New Yorker is just looking up saying, who's going to try and help me and my family? Who's going to try and solve the city's problems in a way that will actually be effective? I do think that my being Asian American is part of how people are kind of trying to challenge my sense of belonging. And someone called them out on that. There was a journalist who just came out and said, look, like this stuff is like veiled xenophobia and it needs to stop.
Right. Thank you so much.
I think it's a time for us to close, and I think it's Zach going to make a closing remark. Zach.
Howdy, howdy. Hi, everyone. I'm Zach. I'm all the way from the snowy state of Illinois. Absolutely thrilled to be here with everyone. I joined the Yang Gang all the way back in 2018, the fall of when Andrew announced his run. So it's been a while. I think his innovation and his willingness to be bold are qualities this country's political sphere needs to be more responsive to the people. Because at the end of the day, we like to call our republic one that is of the people, by the people, and for the people. But with threats to the integrity of our government mounting by the day, it seems that our democracy has really arrived at death's doorstep. Our political system is so dominated by left versus right that it's hardly concerned with right versus wrong. And I think all 6 of us are up here because we believe in Andrew's ability to unite different factions and bring folks together. And above all else, we trust in his compassion and his humanity. Today, Andrew has shown us what it means to be a selfless and compassionate leader. And as an Asian American, his story reflects a lot of our shared struggles. Like he just told us, he too has his belongingness and his Americanness sort of challenged. He too knows the feeling of being pinned in this state of flux where in one moment we're treated as enemies of the state, and then in another moment we're expected to be docile model minorities, obedient and quiet. So I just want to thank you, Andrew, for blazing the trail and opening the door for our generation. I got behind you all the way back in 2018 because you weren't afraid to be frank and tell us the honest truth. And I think that kind of spirit is what we need. Getting subjugated voices to the table starts with speaking and standing up. And I think there isn't a better moment to do so than now. Asian communities are in a world of hurt. Our businesses are bearing the brunt of the recession. Our elderly are literally being savagely attacked in the streets of our own Chinatowns. Our children are waking up to our lawmakers on national television, mocking our families. And it's really a tragedy. So all of that's happening, but we don't engage with our political system. And the people in charge care so little about any of those issues. We won't get them elected with our votes, and we won't get them elected with our dollars. So to them, we're useless. I think it's time that we overhaul that narrative. Vote in this race, participate in this race. To me, if there's one thing that this pandemic has shown me, it's that slanty are always going to be somewhat alien. But when we look at Andrew's story, I think what we should see is opportunity and hope. An opportunity for us Asian Americans to finally make a real change, and a hope that our democracy is still, in fact, for all people. And so with that, I think our forum is going to come to a wrap. I just want to thank everyone for being here, and especially thank Andrew and his team for taking their time out of their jam-packed schedule to talk to us young people. With that, we wish you awesome luck on the campaign trail, and we appreciate everything that you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. That was incredible and so heartfelt and inspiring. Thank you, Angelene, for convening this awesome group of young people. I want to help address the problems that Zach just laid out. I feel them very deeply. I feel them very personally, but we need to step up as a community. I hope you see me as someone who will champion our community and help open people's eyes to the fact that There's no place for anti-Asian sentiment. We're just as American as everyone else. We can lead, we can contribute, we can run the biggest city in the country. Let's show what we can do. Let's win this race. Thank you all so much. Please do go to andrewyang.com if you'd like to help with a campaign. Let's make history together. We've got 4 months and 2 days, and I know we're going to do it. Thank you all. Angelene, you're incredible. These young people are amazing. I should be getting ready to pass the baton sooner rather than later.
Thank you so much. And then wish you the best and good luck, and we're behind you.